Okay, guys. So please don't forget to turn your cameras on. All right. Well, today we are going to continue working on the speaking section. Remember, so far we've seen two different questions of the speaking section, right? Last week we went through question one of the speaking section, which was called the independent question. Yesterday and on Tuesday we went through question two of the speaking section, the university question. So today we'll be moving on to the third question of the speaking section. All right, question 3. Remember, it's also integrated, which means that you will have to be summarizing something, but it's a little bit different than question 2 in terms of the content mostly. So let's take a look at question 3 today. Do you guys have any questions before we start? Guys, remember the previous one was the university question, right? So we're going to say this is the academic question because it's very similar in terms of format to question 2, but the difference is the content. You will see. So for this question here, what you guys will have to do is pretty simple, very similar to question 2. The first thing is you will have to read. You will have to read a short text. This time it won't be a letter anymore, but instead it will be an academic text. So you have to read this text for 45 seconds. You have only 45 seconds to read. After you're done reading the text, you go to step 2, which is basically listening, but you won't have to listen to a conversation anymore. In this case, you will have to listen to a university lecture, a university class. You listen to this lecture, it lasts 1 or 2 minutes. Then you get the question, you get 30 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak. Okay? So again, first thing you read the text for 45 seconds, then you listen to the lecture, which is going to be about the same topic, by the way. Then you get the question, you get 30 seconds to prepare your response, and 1 minute to speak. Is that okay so far? Do you guys have any questions in terms of the content? All clear? Guys, great. Then let's go directly to an example, okay? Remember that I was telling you, you won't have to read a letter anymore. In this case, what you have to read is an academic text. So what I want you guys to do is to imagine that you're in university, right? You're in an ex-American university, you're taking a certain class, and this is part of your textbook. You have found this on your textbook. The professor has asked you guys to read this text, and they're giving you 45 seconds to do that. As you can see, you have a title, right, that says behavior modification in this case. So the first thing that you guys need to do as soon as you get the text is copy the title on your notes, okay? So write down behavior modification on your notes or whatever the title is when you get the text. That's the first and most important thing that you have to do when you read, to copy the title. Okay, guys? Do you have any questions so far? Then I will give you guys 45 seconds or 1 minute to read the text, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, guys? So please read the text. Okay, guys. So can you tell me a little bit about what this is about? So this is behavior modification, right? But what do we have in the text? What is behavior modification? According to the text. Can you tell me what behavior modification is according to this text?
Maybe the actions that people take according to their actions.
Okay, kind of. If you guys had to choose one sentence or one phrase from this text that you think contains the definition of behavior modification, what sentence or what phrase would you guys choose?
I consider it could be the last one when individuals change their behavior based on what they have learned about the consequences of that behavior.
Okay, exactly. Perfect. I do agree with you. So behavior modification, according to this text, it occurs or it is when individuals, when people change or modify their behavior based on what they have learned about the consequences of that behavior. That is behavior modification, right? When you change your behavior based on what you have learned about the consequences of your behavior. That is exactly the definition that we have in the text. And that's exactly what you guys have to do when you're reading. Remember, you just have 45 seconds to read. So what you need to do, the first thing, you copy the title, just the way it is, because you will have to mention it just like that. Behavior modification on your notes. And the second thing is you read and you look for the definition of the concept, the definition of the title. You need to find one phrase that encompasses the entire definition. So take notes on that phrase. You should be writing down change behavior-based consequences, and that's it, right? Those words that are going to help you remember the definition. But you need to take notes on the definition itself. Okay? And those are the only two things that actually matter from this text, the title and the definition. Okay, guys? Is that okay so far? Do you guys have any questions as to what you have to do when you're reading? Okay, guys. So after you've read the text, now you have to listen to the university lecture, right? Now, what will you have in this lecture? This lecture is going to be given by a professor, right? By the university teacher who's called a professor. And this professor, your professor, is going to continue explaining this same idea, this same topic. So what you guys need to do is hear the lecture and take notes. Now, the professor, more specifically, is going to give you real world, real life examples of this concept. The professor will give you examples of how you see this in real life, how you see behavior modification in action. In this case, we have a psychology topic, right? This is about psychology. So you're just going to have one example. It could be an experiment that proves this point. It could be a story from the professor's own life, professor's own experience, or it could also be a general example, okay? So your job is to identify the example and take notes. You need to understand the example or the examples the professor gives to illustrate this concept. Okay, guys? So are you ready to take notes? Do you have any questions before we listen to the lecture? Okay then, so I'm gonna play it. Please take notes.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic in a psychology class. This happens all the time with kids in schools. Say there's a little boy or girl who's just starting school. Well, they're not really used to the rules about proper behavior for a classroom. So at the beginning they might, I don't know, interrupt the teacher, walk around the classroom when they're supposed to be sitting down. You know, just misbehaving in general. Okay, but what happens? Well, the teacher gets angry with them when they act this way. They might get punished. They have to sit at their desks when everyone else is allowed to go outside and play. And they certainly don't like that. Soon, they'll learn that this kind of behavior gets them in trouble. They'll also learn that when they raise their hand to talk to the teacher and sit quietly and pay attention during class, they're rewarded. The teacher tells them she's proud of them and maybe puts little happy face stickers on their homework. Now that their behavior gets a good reaction from the teacher, the kids learn to always act this way in class and not behave the way they used to.
Okay, guys, so that was the lecture. Can anyone please summarize it for me? Can you tell me what it was about?
Actually, the professor explains with examples what the lecture is about. In the lecture, we saw that behavior, when it's a bad behavior, sometimes in this case, in the example, kids are going to get punishment, right? But if they are act in a good behavior, probably their teacher is going to be proud of them. So they are going to want to repeat this action, right?
Okay, exactly, great. So what happens at the end is that they change their behavior, right? They started behaving badly, they started misbehaving in class, but as they saw that that gets them a bad reaction, a punishment, and they also saw that behaving well gets them a reward, they change their initial behavior, right? They don't misbehave anymore, they start behaving well. So yes. This is a transcript from the lecture. And what I really liked about Carolina's response was that she focused on what is actually important. She didn't focus on the details, right? She wasn't like, so the teacher gets them a happy face sticker, the teacher tells them that she's proud, the kids are interacting in the class. So she didn't focus on the details, but she focused on the most important ideas, which are the ones that the most important ideas and information is always going to be the one that's directly linked or related to what you have in the text. So in the text, we know that the concept is that when individuals change their behavior based on what they've learned about the consequences of that behavior. So one very good tip that I can give you guys is when you're reading this, if you understand the reading, if you understand the concept, then you become an active listener and you need to be looking for specific information in the lecture. You know the concept, so you're looking for an example of individuals. In the example, the individuals are the kids, right? So you take notes on that. They change their behavior in class. Based on what they have learned about the consequences of that behavior, the consequences is the teacher's reactions, right? Whether it's punishment for a good behavior or reward for a bad behavior, right? So they change their behavior from bad behavior to good behavior. When you do that, when you understand well the concept, then you are looking for specific information, right? And your focus should be on that information, not on the details. Okay, guys? So is that okay so far? Do you have any questions as for the reading or the listening part before we see the question? No questions? Okay, good. So let's look at the question. Elizabeth, please, can you read the question I have on my screen?
Using the example from the lecture, explain what behavior modification is and how it works.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. So that is the question, right? I want you to pay attention to it. It's not, it doesn't say summarize the reading and summarize the lecture, right? What it says is what Karina said, right? The lecture explains the concept with examples. That's what you guys have to do. You have to explain the concept, explain behavior modification, not with the concept itself, but with the example that the professor talked about. So you have to use that example to explain the definition, right? That's what the question wants you to do, and that's what we're gonna do. Remember that after hearing the question, you get 30 seconds to prepare your response, 30 seconds in which you can do whatever you want. Remember that that time won't be recorded. So as I said before, it depends on what you need to do. You can check your notes, organize your notes, rehearse, or just think, relax, whatever works better for you. So what we're gonna see is what we do during our response time. How do we actually answer this question? Let's see. We're gonna have a template for that. Here's our template. How many seconds do we have to speak to answer the question?
60.
Exactly, we have 60 seconds. So during our first 10 seconds, no more than that, we are gonna have a short introduction. And in the introduction, what we need to do is mention the title that you have in your notes because you copied it, and mention the definition that you also took notes from the reading. Okay? So the title and the definition go in the introduction, and 10 seconds is more than enough. You will have to say, according to the passage, behavior modification occurs when individuals learn through experience, or when individuals modify their behavior based on what they've learned about the consequences of that behavior. That should be your introduction, just the title and the definition, okay? Any questions so far? Okay, good. Then we have a short transition in which we're gonna say, in the lecture, the professor gives the example of, and here we need to start talking about the example. We need to basically explain what you guys already explained to me. Explain the example, but focus on the information that matters. Again, right? Focus on the things that are related to the reading. Don't focus on like the details or anything. Okay, guys? So another thing that I forgot to say, as soon as you hear the professor speak, write down the pronoun in big letters, the way we did for question 2. So write down whether it's a female or male professor so that you know and you don't get confused later. Okay, guys? And that's it. You just explain the lecture, focusing on the information, the relevant information, and that's it. You don't need a conclusion, but if you happen to have some extra time, you can go with a short conclusion and say something like, in summary, this is a glaring example of what behavior modification is, for example. Okay, guys? Is this okay? Do you guys have any questions now? Is everything clear? Okay, guys. So I will give you guys a sample response. I'm going to do it so that you see how I manage my time, the things that I say, the things that I leave behind, how I explain the information. So pay attention. According to the passage, behavior modification occurs when people modify their behavior based on what they've learned about the consequences of that behavior. In the lecture, the professor gives the example of kids in the classroom. He explains that in the beginning, initially, when kids are new, they don't know the rules, so they may start misbehaving in class. For example, they could interrupt the teacher, walk around the classroom, and as a result, they will get punished by the teacher. However, they also see that when they behave properly in class, when they raise their hand to talk to the teacher, when they pay attention, they get rewarded by the teacher. Therefore, at the end, they learn to behave this way in class. They change or modify their initial misbehavior and they turn it into a good behavior because they want rewards from the teacher based on the consequences of the teacher's reactions. Right? So that's it. As you guys can see, I didn't focus on the details. I focused on the most important information, but I did include a couple of them, right? And I also use some transitions here and there. However, as a result, therefore, initially, what else? I didn't need a conclusion. I used 10 seconds for my introduction. I had the transition. And that's about it, right? It's not too complicated. So what do you guys think now? Any questions? Any comments? Is everything clear? You get the idea? Yes? Okay, great. Then another thing that I wanted to also talk to you guys about was the topics. Okay, what kind of topics you can find here? So there are actually three big categories, three main topics that you will find in this question, which are psychology, biology, and business. Okay, psychology, biology, and business. 90% of the time you will get one of these three. So psychology is the one that we saw, right? It's exactly like that. It's usually about our brain, how it works, how we interact with other people, how we process certain things, certain emotions, how we deal with certain experiences, how we learn. So it has to do with that. You do need some vocabulary. So my suggestion for improving or expanding your vocabulary on the area is maybe you can watch these TED Talks, TED Education. So if you search, if you go to YouTube, you'll find a lot of videos. And I think you also have podcasts, right, from TED Ed. So there are 4 to 5 minutes long videos. So maybe you can watch those in order to expand your vocabulary, right? And search or look up for the words that you don't understand, try to understand them from context too. For biology, it's never going to be human biology, don't worry. So it won't be very complicated. You don't have to have any vocabulary on human anatomy or anything. But what you will have in biology is basically animals and plants. And they will talk about how they organize their life processes, how they relate among each other, how they have evolved, how they have adapted to certain changes to the environment, how they catch their food, how they escape from predators, how they survive, how they find food. So that is the type of thing that you will see in biology. Plants and animals, okay? Mostly adaptations. Then you have business. For biology, my suggestion, it's usually a little bit hard and you still need vocabulary. So you need to know a few words like predators, prey, some names of animals, survival, genes. You do need some vocabulary. So my suggestion for that is maybe you can watch some National Geographic videos. They're like 4 to 5 minute long videos online available. And there are plenty of other stuff as well. There's American Scientific, I think is another one. So there are many podcasts, many channels that you can see. National Geographic is, I guess, one of the main ones in order to expand your vocabulary. And finally, business, which is never going to be like hardcore economics or anything. Instead, you just have advertising strategies to attract consumers, marketing products, that type of thing. Okay, it's mostly that. Nothing too complicated, but you do need vocabulary as well. So my suggestion for business is listen to some business podcasts. There are so many available because you do need some words, right? You need to be able to speak about business in a very casual way. So you need words like consumers, products, customers, franchising, merchandising, targets. I don't know. You do need some vocabulary. And finally, as usual, there's nothing certain. Nothing is 100% going to be like this. So there's a small chance that you can have other topics as well, including art or history, sociology, geology, literature. So you could have those topics as well. Okay, but I mean, it's very rare, very uncommon, but you could. Okay, guys? And that's it. Psychology, biology, and business, the most common ones, but there's also a small chance that you have something else. Is that okay so far? Any questions now? Okay, guys. So we've done psychology. I want to see business and biology now so that you guys can see an example of each type. And we're going to be done with. Okay, so let's take a look at a business and a biology question as well so that you see how this one works. Okay, guys. So we're going to be working on this one. How many seconds do you guys have to read the text? Anyone?
Yeah, 45 seconds.
Exactly. So starting now, you have 45 seconds to read this text. Remember, the title and the definition are the things that you're looking for.
Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in a marketing class. Nowadays, something you notice more and more is television commercials that are made specifically for certain television programs. So, let's say a company wants to sell a telephone, a cell phone. Now, during TV shows that young people watch, shows with pop music or teen serials, they create a commercial that emphasizes how fun the phone is. The phone has bright colors and they show kids having a good time with their friends. And, well, the company wants the kids watching TV at this time to want to buy this phone that's made especially for them. But the same company will make a different commercial to be shown during, say, a program about business or a business news show. Now, for this group of people, business people, the company will have to show how efficient their phone is, how it can handle all business easily, and maybe even save money. And here's the thing. It's basically the same phone. The company has just made two different commercials to appeal to different groups of people.
Okay, guys. Now, using the professor's examples, explain the advertising technique of target marketing. You will now have 30 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, guys. So, is there anyone who would like to try by any chance?
Can I try, please?
Of course, Carolina. Please go ahead.
Okay, according to the passage, target marketing is defined as a technique or as a strategy to advertising to a smaller audience. And according to the professor, the there were an example like about a cell phone, right? It was the same cell phone, but the technique is that they are going to make a different commercial for young people and a different commercial for I don't know, people that are like businessmen or something like that. They are going to show how fun it is for young people. And in the other commercial, they are going to show how efficient is the cell phone for businessmen or businesswomen. And that is the difference about the technique of target marketing.
Okay, great, perfect. Really well done, Carolina. I think that was a great first try. So first thing, in terms of content, you had the correct definition. You said advertising to a smaller audience. It's perfect. And you explained the example well. I can see that your understanding was really good. So it's a company that wants to sell the same phone to two different types of people, two different targets, right? Target audiences. The first one is young people, and they will make a commercial showing how fun the phone is. And in order to advertise it to business people, they show how the efficiency of the phone, right? As you said. So great. Maybe some comments I could add. Make sure that your introduction is always ready so that you go faster. You use 20 seconds for your introduction, what it should have been only 10. You can do it in 10 seconds. I'm pretty sure you can. So make sure that it's something fast, that it's ready to go. Also, try to use the template in order to also avoid making mistakes, right? So for example, when you were transitioning, you said there were an example, right? Instead of there was an example. But instead use a template. The professor gives the example of a company that wants to sell cell phones to two different types of people. You can also maybe try to use some transitions here and there. On one hand, if they want to advertise it to young people, they will do this. On the other hand, or however, if they want to advertise it to business people. So maybe I would add a couple of things here and there, but overall, it was a great response, Carney. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Any questions so far? This was business. Right. Let's now do biology. Okay, this is going to be the one. Again, you will have 45 seconds to read the text.
Now listen to part of a lecture from a biology class.
There's a large tropical insect called the peanut bug. Yes, like the peanuts that you eat. And the peanut bug's front wings are colored so that they blend in with their surroundings. But its back wings, which are usually closed and hidden, have these bright, colorful spots on them. And when the peanut bug's attacked, it suddenly opens its back wings, and out pop these big, bright colors. And that surprises the predator and gives the peanut bug a chance to get away. And then you have a butterfly called the morpho butterfly. And parts of the morpho butterfly's wings are very shiny. They reflect a lot of sunlight. When this butterfly is resting, this shiny part of its wings is hidden. Now, morpho butterflies are often attacked by birds. So when a bird approaches, the morpho flies away. And when the morpho flaps its wings, all the bird can see are flashes of light reflected from the morpho's wings. Those flashes of light make it very difficult for the bird to follow the morpho, and the morpho is usually able to get away.
Now, using the examples from the peanut bag and the morpho butterfly, explain the concept of revealing coloration. You will now have 30 seconds to prepare your responses. You guys? So, anyone that wants to try? No? It was a little bit harder, right? But if we talk about this, Carolina?
I can try also.
Yes, of course you can. So go ahead, please.
Okay. According to the passage, revealing coloration is a strategy that use animals to hide them from predators. The professors mentioned two examples of those animals. One was the peanut bug, that this is, I understood that it has the flies colorful, so when they are attacked by another insect or another animal, they show these colors, and it is going to confuse the animal, and he or it is going to get a chance to escape, right? And the second example was the morpho butterfly. That is the same thing, but in this way, it is very shiny, right? And when a bird attacks him or it, they use this shiny light to get away from them.
Exactly. Perfect. Well done. Carolina, this was more complicated, a little bit more complex, but you did just fine. Your definition was correct, a defensive strategy to defend themselves from predators. May be careful with the pronunciation of the word. You're going to use it a lot, predators. But the content was perfect. You talked about the two examples, the peanut bag, the colorful spots that they have in their wings, on their wings, in order to confuse predators and escape, right? And also the second one that reflects light, those shiny lights that confuse predators as well. So both were really good. They were well explained. You needed some extra time, but it's just a matter of practice. What I could say, maybe careful with the pronouns when you're talking about animals. I noticed that you were confusing a little bit. try to always make them plural, right? So the peanut bags in general, maybe. And that way you're always going to be using the pronoun they. So when they escape, their predators approach them, and maybe that's going to make it easier for you. Try to use transitions instead of saying the first example, the second example. Tell me first, furthermore. But overall, it was a great response. I'd say you're starting really strong. Okay, guys. Do you have any questions so far? Any comments? Okay, good. Then let's do one more. We've done psychology, biology, and business one. Now, I'm sorry. Now let's do something else, something that's not any of those, okay? So you guys can get a look at everything. We're gonna be doing this one here. Remember, you have 45 seconds to read the text.
Now listen to part of a lecture in an art history class.
All right, so let's consider the work of the outsider artist Henry Darger. Darger lived by himself in a tiny apartment in Chicago in the 1900s. He had no friends and spent all his spare time there alone, creating hundreds of paintings and drawings. He had never formally studied art, and kept his work completely private, so no one ever saw it or responded to it during his lifetime. And so when you see Darger's work, you notice how unique it is. It doesn't remind you of anything you've ever seen before. It's very much his own. For example, one piece, it's a watercolor painting. In this piece, he illustrates a story about the adventures of 7 children. But see, Darger had a really hard time drawing human figures, yet he managed to come up with his own rather unique solution for the problem. He simply cut out pictures of children from newspapers and magazines and pasted them into his own painted illustration of trees, flowers, and grass. The results look a little strange. Darger's picture looks more cluttered, more crowded with details than the pictures of other artists, because its entire surface is painted and there are no spaces left empty. It's also a lot longer than the pictures of most other artists, about 9 feet long.
Okay. Now explain why Henry Darger is considered as an outsider artist. You will now have 30 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So, is there anyone who wants to try this one? No? Nobody?
I can try.
Yeah, first, go ahead, please.
Okay. According to the passage, outsider artist is a person that doesn't know any kind of technique about art, because he or she didn't have the possibility to learn because they usually live away from another context, right? As the professor mentioned, Henry Darger is considered an outsider artist because he always lived alone and he lived far away from the city. He had no friends, and also he was a very private person. So when he makes their painting, he just paint flowers or something like some things that he knows. Eh, and when he wants to paint a person or something like that, he just stick them because he doesn't know how a person really looks, right?
Okay, good, well done. So you were kind of generalizing the ideas a little bit, but it was okay. What I would say, first thing, careful with the grammar part. Uh, what I don't want you to do is to mix tenses, but technically what you did was not wrong, right? Because what happened was initially you were starting with the past tense, right? You said he had no friends, he was a very private person, he had no social life, that was past. But then you started using present as well, right? So he paints flowers, he knows, he makes the painting. So I don't want you to mix the tenses. But technically, you could either use the present or the past. Even if you use the present, and I know that this was somebody that probably died already, it's okay because it's also a way of narrating. But what you can do is mix the tenses. So it's either present or past. Okay, don't mix them. Now, another thing I could say is try not to explain too much in the introduction. Make it short. Tell me according to the reading or according to the passage, outsider artist is an artist that lives and works outside of society, and leave it there. Or outsider art is art that is made by people who choose to live outside of society. But don't explain, don't tell me because they didn't have a possibility to learn artistic techniques, because they lived away from everyone. Don't explain, because you will explain with your example, right? The way that the question says. So don't explain, just mention briefly what the concept is, and you will explain better with the example. So those are the only things that I'd say. But overall, it was a great response as well. Well done, Carolina.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, sure. So, do you have any questions now? Do you have any comments? Everything clear? Okay, guys. So please, before you go and while I'm calling attendance, please don't forget today's daily survey. Tomorrow we'll be practicing, so don't worry if you haven't practiced too much today. We have tomorrow's class 2 to work on the same question. So tomorrow's a practice session, sorry, and we're gonna be practicing task 3. So we'll be doing exactly what we were doing just this last couple of minutes of the class, but we'll answer plenty more questions. Today, please don't forget the survey though, and that's gonna be it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow in class. Bye bye, guys. Take care.